Hi all, and thank you very much for joining me for episode number 10 of Mantell Associates Network. I'm joined today by Marc Funk, and Marc Funk is a leader across the pharmaceutical and life science space. He is the ex-CEO of Lonza and is going to be starting a number of new appointments in the upcoming year as well. So very exciting times ahead. For those of you who don't know Lonza is an organization of just over 15,000 employees and is a leader in the cell and gene and biologics viral vector manufacturing space across the globe. So hugely exciting to have you on, Marc. And obviously, I know that you resigned from your position at Lonza earlier in 2020. Talk to me a little bit about what life has been like for you during COVID-19 in terms of work life, family, new opportunities, and also leaving a company when no doubt you were busy all of the time running something like that?
Well, for sure, whatever I have planned at the end of 19 did not happen in 2020. But I guess we are 8 billion people in the same situation. So that's not news, but certainly, it was very interesting at the early of spring to start to think, oh, now I have to organize my life completely different. And I would say that the way it worked for me is that it was very much linked with the different seasons. In spring, everything was new. You had to be in your house. You had to learn to live differently. Inside, it was kind of interesting because you had to live with your family, which I didn't do that for the last 20 years. So that was an interesting thing. Was very enjoyable, still is. And then on the outside, you had no idea what's going on. You didn't know whether will you have food, all these kind of things. And then over the months, things went a little bit more into a routine. You get used to it. And in summer, you had a little bit the hope that these things will go away. People started to relax a little bit, and the holidays and the summer and so on. And then comes the autumn, bam, second wave. You have to reorganize yourself in that new parameter, knowing that whatever you plan to do in 2021 might not even happen again. And now we come, I would say, winter. Still, yes, we have most likely vaccines, but the way you plan your year 2021 and even beyond is still with a lot of unknown, and that's what you have to live with, and this is likely to happen during the entire 2021.
Absolutely. And you mentioned there about the food side, and I remember completely when it was the first wave of lockdown in the UK, all of the shops were empty, everyone was rushing, and then people finally chilled out. Now no one's as fussed as much really anymore. But you mentioned about not planning for or it being difficult to plan for the year ahead or even the years ahead. Someone like yourself, going into a brand new venture now and going into a brand new organization where being a CEO of an organization or being a leader in the pharmaceutical industry, your job is to forecast a lot. Your job is to plan. Your job is to set goals for a business. How do you even get your head around doing something like that during a time like this?
It goes back to some very basic rules. You have to deal with the known and the unknown, and what is possibly the unknown known. And you have to put this into the different baskets and then deal with it in a very systematic way. And that way you have to somehow find the best possible route. That is one thing. Of course, our industry is very different than probably others, where what we do is very much in demand. And we have not exactly the same challenges as other industries have. I mean, the challenge that manufacturers of critical medicines has not the same challenge of running a low-cost airline company. So
Absolutely.
it's a bit different. So, of course, on that side, this industry is very fortunate. Doesn't mean that it's easy, but certainly extremely interesting.
Extremely interesting. And you said the word fortunate as well. And I've got family who work in coffee shops, who work in logistics and things like this, and they have been impacted like massively. And it's not just my family. You hear about many people's families, friends who run companies or work in businesses which have struggled massively. But the pharmaceutical industry has thrived by most. What challenges have you faced being a leader in the pharmaceutical CDMO space, and what challenges do you forecast for other leaders?
We have to make a distinction between innovative future medicines and established medicine, biologics, small molecules, generics. In the innovative medicines, the challenge is to provide answers of possible new therapies in technologies that are not yet proven to be efficient, with a lot of supply chain issues, with investments that needs to be done as fast as possible so you can do trials or even commercial products. So that's one big challenge. And then on the more established medicines, there is quite of an increase in demand in general on some of the medicines. So just examples, antibiotics dramatically increased this year and probably next year too. But that's a bracket that will end. Whereas the innovative one, that is likely to continue. And that will set, I hope, and I, as much as possible, will try to make sure this continues, that those new therapies will continue to come at the service of medicines and patients.
Incredible. And thank you so much for that. And it's got to be something, speaking about different types of medicines and going to patients, something which is unplanned for, but is hot off the press today in the UK. If you turn on the news and all you see is Boris Johnson, Sky News, BBC, speaking about 40 million doses of a vaccine, which is due to be coming to the market very, very soon. Does any part of you feel that, obviously, for many different drugs, FDA approval takes many years, and this has been very, very quick. Do you have any concerns about something like this?
You have to. That doesn't mean that it's at high risk or whatever, but you have to be extremely diligent, not just in the manufacturing, but in what goes all around it, the supply chain, the registries of whomever needs to take it, etc. You can think of so many things, and to roll this out in such a short time, you have to be super diligent so that it goes as much as possible flawless. Can we do it? Yes, of course. But when you do things for the first time, usually you never do it right.
Yeah, that is such a good point to make, and it is absolutely true. That is concerning, but it doesn't mean that hopefully these people who are far more intelligent than me, who are working on this, have got it right first time, which is the aim. Speaking in terms of the positivity and the encouragement and the incredible signs of the future to come, what are some of the most positive or exciting changes that you can foresee in the pharmaceutical world as a whole in the future? Maybe even coming from this pandemic and what we've learned from it.
I think that for the last 10 years, I hear that the digital world and the pharma world will somewhat converge, but it never really happened. In 2020, much more happened in that space, and that is possibly a milestone that this is likely to continue even more. The second thing is very interesting is that innovation, take COVID-19, did not come from large pharmas. They came mainly from small companies. Then, of course, large pharma helped during the course, helped accelerate. But that is something that, of course, we saw already for quite some years. But here is a very important example of where innovation comes from small companies. And this, I think, will need to be thought through more in depth for the future. I think it's very good that companies can, with people, a small group of people with good ideas, get the capital and bring things that can, in this case, save the planet or something like this, and bringing it to shape. I don't think we have seen that before.
Wow, it is incredible. And something else I was going to mention off of that, like smaller companies which are coming up with new ideas, pushing the world forward in the pharmaceutical space. We've seen, obviously, I've not worked for this space anywhere near as long as you've worked in this space, but we've seen and heard from speaking with hundreds of thousands of people that this year in particular has been a year where private equity organizations and VC firms have been investing in smaller companies and projects, as it were, more than ever. And it's because exactly what you said about the innovation which is being made across these types of businesses, so hugely exciting for the future ahead. In terms of leadership and leading businesses and leading people, and do you think that, obviously, it's challenged different people in different ways? I lead a company of 15 people. You've led a company of 15,000 people. A little bit different. But do you think that this time period has been especially challenging for leaders, and why?
To lead large organization, if it is in the manufacturing space, an important element is for leaders to go on the different sites, see the leaders on the manufacturing sites and do town halls, talk to the people, go into the manufacturing plant. This nobody could do. So that was a challenge, but everybody was understanding this. So people could do this via the means of today, the digital video conferencing and so on, which was totally acceptable, and you could do your job during that time. But you can't do that forever. And here is a little bit of a risk. If one assumes that you can continue to live with those technology and be a leader, there might be a problem. So very soon, once you can be a bit more mobile, I don't know which year, which season, but when that comes, leaders have to be very cautious not to think that the digital world is enough to bring guidance and leadership and motivate people into the right direction. And that would be something to pay a lot of attention.
You think it's going to go at the moment, we're still in the office in central London. At the moment, so Mantell Associates, we're speaking with organizations, of course. Manufacturing companies have to be in terms of manufacturing staff, have to be on site, have to be working there, and they've got to be keeping their 2 meter distance and so forth. from a kind of working from home basis and making the world more digital, as you mentioned, do you think that this is going to stay? And I guess for you, in the new companies where you're going to be sitting on the boards, where you're going to be leading the organizations, what do you expect to be doing and approaching, and what do you think is the right way?
As much as possible, try to de-digitize yourself, meaning we got in that habit to say, oh, okay, from my living room and I do my job. No, you have to make sure that habit changes again. And that's very important.
Absolutely. And being around teams, even not being a leader, but being in a business, just being around your team and being around human beings is so important. And also for different ideas, that is exactly where innovation comes from, being around different like-minded people who are all thinking about different ideas and working towards a common goal. If you're working from home, you've got to video call them every time you have an idea, or you've got to telephone call them. Whereas if you're in that same space, it's incredibly important. Thank you so much. And I guess, what do you think, not only in the modern world, but as a whole, how do you define good leadership, no matter what size of the company?
Do you know how many books have been written about that?
I've read a lot, but I'm still awful. So I'm asking you, but books, hundreds of thousands and millions on this.
I don't think anybody can read all the books, all the magazines, all the articles that have been written about that question. So it's certainly not me who is going to say anything crazy or innovative that will be whatever. I don't think so. But what's interesting is so many people have spent time to try to answer that question. And still, you still have this unknown. And I think that always amazes me. So I would say, I cannot recommend anything, of course, but I'll tell you how I see it, and it's probably very simple. It's a good organization, a company, a private company, or whatever, is basically differentiating itself by the quality of the people who make it. And that means that if you have people who really have great talent, abilities to do whatever challenge it is, and they are capable of working together, that differentiates one company among others. Now, all the rest is all the same. The second thing, I think, that's where probably there are no really good answers to that. Otherwise, nobody would even ask it. It's to what extent the people who work together are successful in taking risks. And some people do take risks and phenomenally succeed. And some people take risks and dramatically fail. But they all had the same approach. And the border between success and failure is sometimes extremely thin.
Absolutely.
Think of your friend Churchill. I mean, how much risk did that guy take?
Lots.
And how close was he to total failure? He's so close. And well, at the end, he succeeded. So, of course, now he's considered the leader, whatever. There are also other things, but that's an example.
A really good example, and he's now painted in history. That's actually an amazing example between the thin line between. And if it wasn't for actually not even Churchill, but America assisting, he probably wouldn't have succeeded. So the line is thin, and it comes down to assistance that you get, teams that work together. I actually think your answer to that question, your reaction to that question was probably the answer. Because when I asked you, what do you think what do you think defines a good leader or a successful leader? Your reaction was, I'm not even going to begin to answer. There have been, how many books have there been written? And actually, I think being human is something which I've seen, being human, not arrogant, being humble, and just accepting that we're going to make mistakes, accepting that there is no book that's ever going to write it. Just do it, just learn, just work as a team, take risks, and make it work. And yeah, amazing. Thank you. And I guess I'll leave it with one final question for today, Marc, which is, what piece of advice would you give to other leaders in the pharmaceutical space, or other leaders across any industry right now, and all people as well? Advice for people to take with them.
Okay, I don't want to appear as a priest, so I don't want to give big advice or whatever, but I think that what I have observed in general in this part of the world is not enough attention to try to understand Asia. And we don't spend in general enough time to try to see what is going to be the future of this world in business when Asia and the West are going to be more or less equal in terms of wealth, in terms of growth, and so on. And we in the West are very much biased on that. And I don't think that's good. So I've spent quite some time on this in this year, and I really think that this is a big problem. And as leaders in whatever industry you're in, spend more time, I think, in trying to understand how can you better understand how the people work in Asia, what can be done to work together better.
You feel
not doing that enough might lead to quite serious problems.
You even notice, I know it's a small example, but when we go to conferences like the CPHI conference, and you even see the divide there, it's always, you've got an actual stand for different locations, and you don't see often interlinking business. It seems that they do the business amongst each other, and we do, in terms of the Western society do business amongst each other, but Asia is a powerhouse. How do you think we get around that?
We shouldn't get it around. We should go together. But to go together, you need to spend time to understand how they work, what are their challenges, how can we do things better together, and so on. That's not done enough. I've been to Asia, I have done business in Asia, I've built plant in Asia, but very much with the idea of, okay, I have my company wherever in Switzerland, and I need to make sure that I have growth, and I need to go there to sustain my growth. Right? I'm not sure that this is the best way to approach it. And you can take simple metrics. How many Asian people do you have in Western boards? Compared to how much do they sell there, or how much do they manufacture there?
Yeah.
And you see the imbalance. Forget gender discussions. This is dramatically worse. And I think that this is something that is concerning, because that could lead to further problems on the West, because they will grow and they might even bypass us in terms of competitiveness and so on, and we will struggle with that. And also a lot of misunderstanding on how people work, their culture, and so on. And that, I think, is something we really have to pay attention. So that's in general.
That's amazing. And that's probably the most different answer that I've ever had to that question on this podcast. No one's ever pointed out anything like that. And that's probably the problem, is that it's kind of left and people ignore it. I look at Mantell Associates, most of our work is in the US, 60% in the US, 40% in Europe, nothing in Asia, maybe a tiny little bit of business here and there with odd large manufacturers, but then that's just looking for people in Europe for Asian organizations. So still it's untouched and it needs to be broken into. And I think the media hasn't helped that situation, because people like Donald Trump don't make you feel like you're together. He walks around calling it the China virus, and that creates divide. It's not true.
I said to my kids, they are in college, I don't care what you do, but you are going to live in Asia, because you need to understand how it works there.
Wow. I absolutely love that. Marc, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on today. Thank you so much. All the best, and we will be in touch soon. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Thank you. And you. Take care. Bye.